What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video I'm going to present 5 great builds to get inspired by. This week's showcase is a good mix of meta and hipster builds combined into one video. If you enjoy this type of content, then please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and ring that bell icon for future videos on this channel. A big shout out to my patrons as always, you guys are making it possible. Thank you. And now, let's begin. The first entry on today's list is an Ice Golem Elementalist by Utopian. So yeah, we're starting with something that is rather off-meta-ish this time around. Golem builds have been a thing for a couple of years now, and we've seen them in all kinds of variants and forms up to this date. They typically appeal to the type of player who wants to run a build that can deal with all the different types of content, but isn't necessarily too concerned about it fitting into the clear speed meta category. That being said, Golem builds can actually be rather fast if the playstyle is tailored around the design. Another great thing about Golem builds or summoners in general is that they tend to be able to run almost any map mod, and so re-rolling and spending extra currency to get the right map is less of a hassle. The build is played as the Elementalist, and through this and the Leash of the Primordial and Elemencer keystones you'll be able to increase the soft cap of 1 maximum Golem up at a time to 3. However, it does not stop here. To further increase the amount of golems the build can summon, it further incorporates the Clay Shaper Mace, the Primordial Chain Amulet, and the Anima Stone Jewel, enabling the build to summon up to 8 active golems at a time. For very late game, the build transitions into a bow and quiver type setup, as bows can roll some powerful minion affixes and plus levels to gems, with the latter typically being amongst the strongest ways to scale a golem's power. Besides this, the build feature items such as the Skin of the Loyal chest armor, the Command of the Pit gloves, or alternatively the Grip of the Council gloves, the Skullhead helmet, the Victorious shield, and of course the Primordial Harmony and Primordial Essence golem jewels. Alternatively, the build can also be played as a Necromancer. Doing so means you will have to say goodbye to 2 of your 8 active golems and instead rely on just 6. However, through the Necromancer Ascendancy, tons of minion damage, speed and life can be achieved to make up for this, with the additional benefit of being able to heavily scale Spectre minions for their added benefit. To do so means the gearing is going to be slightly different, and Utopian has, together with Mika Tusalo, provided a few different setups you can check out and decide on based on your own personal preference. If Golems or Summoners sounds like fun to you, then this might be the build to try for your next character. The second build on this week's list is a Frostblade's Champion by Raazen. Frostblades have, like many other skills, received a buff in 3.7 Legion. This includes gaining a significant amount of flat, cold damage per gem level, making it feel much smoother to level with, and as a result also providing more damage to scale at endgame. As a side note, I've also recently and personally found Frostblades to be amongst the best leveling skills for anyone who's trying to level a melee-oriented build at this time. The difference between this build and many other typical Frostblade based builds is that this setup, rather than focusing on attack speed as a way of scaling your DPS, rather focus on high attack damage and crit multipliers to deliver the main result. For that reason, this build is designed around two-handed weapons, or more specifically two-handed swords. The ideal endgame weapon for this setup is the Void Forge, which at the current time in this league actually goes for a rather affordable price. However, if you can't afford it at this time, you can until then use the Terminus S sword as another great alternative. Besides the weapons, the build also feature items such as the Lore Weave chest armor, the Staconia's head helmet, and the Mark of the Elder Ring. The build is played as the Champion Ascendancy, and through this gains some powerful buffs. For instance, the Champion will allow you to taunt enemies via the Conqueror keystone. This will reduce the damage of those affected, but it gets even better once you pair it with the Worthy Foe keystone, as it then also makes taunted enemies take additional damage and prevents them from evading attacks, effectively granting you 100% hit chance against these enemies, and thus also negating the need to focus on accuracy and all that which it entails. Furthermore, Raazen's build also picked the Unstoppable Hero and Fortify keystone. This will grant you a permanent uptime of Fortify with a greatly increased effect. Raazen has written an easy to follow guide with good tips on how to level the build, and it is definitely worth checking out. Build number 3 is a Scourge Arrow Pathfinder by Thedeathbeam. Scourge Arrow is an attack, bow, projectile, chaos and channeling focused skill. The harder and longer you stroke the bowstring, the stronger the burst becomes, and through this, tiny spore pods are sent out in a path directly ahead of you. 5 strokes is enough to deliver the most powerful burst. Eventually each of these spore pods bloom and fires a nova of arrows to anyone in their near vicinity, dealing damage to them. Scourge Arrow also converts 60% of your physical damage to chaos, and this together with the Darkscorn Bow that adds another 25% conversion, and the Master Toxicist keystone from the Pathfinder Ascendancy that adds another 10% enables the build to have up to 95% of all physical damage being converted to chaos damage. Being able to effectively apply a high amount of chaos damage also means that the build is able to effectively scale and build up poison stacks on enemies, which for this build also means it is able to reliably build up virulence. A buff that anytime the player have the Herald of Agony skill enabled and poisons an enemy, buffs the Agony Crawler minion that in turn then becomes a true powerhouse in itself and lends a welcoming additional damage boost alongside the powerful poison stacks that the Scourge Arrow applies. And as a result allows it to deliver some powerful single target damage alongside the great map clearing potential it has by proliferating poison stacks onto nearby enemies through the Nature's Reprisal Ascendancy keystone. Besides the Darkscorn Bow, the build also features items such as the Embalmer Gloves, the Atziri's Promise and the Corralitos Signature Flasks. I include this build as it is a great beginner's choice for anyone wanting to try out a bow build that can effectively deal with any content in the game. That's not to say veterans shouldn't play this, of course. I'm just making a note of it being a solid choice for those less experienced to the game as well. Coming up fourth is a Reave Berserker build by Hybrid. I'm not sure if I've ever featured a Reave build yet in my videos, but considering the skill is a lot of fun to play and that Hybrid's build has been set up to also work with either Cyclone or Lacerate, I thought it'd pique your interest. All 3 skills have received changes in 3.7. Reave and Lacerate have had their damage, or more specifically damage effectiveness, greatly buffed. Lacerate also received an interesting mechanical change, making it work differently and directly through the blood and saint stances. When in bloodstains, Lacerate has a 25% chance to cause bleeding and 50% more damage with bleeds, and in saint stains, a 50% increased girth of the attack. And let's be honest, what kind of guy doesn't want that? Or girl for that matter. Furthermore, Lacerate also received a strong flat damage boost per level of the skill gem, making it easier to level with, and thus also a lot more enjoyable at those early levels before getting yourself a proper weapon. And I don't think there's any need to repeat the Cyclone changes, as most of you are already aware and I have covered this in previous videos anyway. But bottom line, Cyclone, good. The build is played as the Berserker, and through this opens up for some powerful rage stacking possibilities through Crave the Slaughter that together with Rite of Ruin is going to greatly increase your attack speed, damage and movement speed at the cost of a life degen penalty, something which Leech or regular extra life regeneration can combat and solve. Furthermore, through Flawless Savagery and Blitz, even more damage gets unlocked with the additional Blitz mechanic being able to apply a stacking buff, and with each stack, more attack speed is achieved. The build is designed around dual-wielding swords, and of noteworthy gear features items such as the Sarconius head helmet, the Belly of the Beast, or alternatively the Carcass Jack or Law Weave body armors, and the Tomb Fist gloves. A fair warning though, many of the non-unique items require a bit of crafting or trading know-how to get the most out of. So unless you already possess those skills or are up for the challenge of getting to learn them, then you might want to manage your expectations of how far you can push this build. If you, however, already feel comfortable around trading or crafting, then this build can take you all the way from the sunny beach in Bulgaria into the Uber Elder's domain in Russia. The fifth and maybe last build on this week's list is a Toxic Rain Trickster by Goku, TD. Toxic Rain is another bow skill that converts a large percentage of physical damage into chaos damage, but unlike Scourge Arrow, isn't a channeling skill. And yes, before I begin explaining the build, let's first address the elephant in the room. It is true, yes, from the gameplay you might notice that the build uses a Headhunter. However, that doesn't mean the build requires that to function, not at all actually, so please don't let that discourage you from trying the build in case you find it interesting. Alright, with that out of the way, with the skill you will shoot 5 arrows into the air that then rains down upon and damages enemies in the targeted area and creating spore pods where the projectiles land. Each of these spore pods produce a chaos damage over time effect that besides dealing damage slows the enemy's movement. After a short duration, the spore pods burst and delivers further damage to anyone around them. The faster you attack, the more pods you'll be able to cover the area in. which can then be further improved by duration modifiers to increase the dot effect from the pots, enabling them to stack the damage over time effect for a longer duration, and thus dealing more damage. What this boils down to is really that Toxic Rain has some interesting mechanics that, when built around, opens up for some powerful single target damage potential, together with great area coverage, making it possible to achieve great clear speed with the skill too. The build is played as the Trickster Ascendancy for some powerful damage scaling via Patient Reaper and Prolonged Pain, but also for the amazing energy shield and life recovery potential that can be achieved via the Ghost Shroud mechanic, unlocked through Ghost Stains and then Escape Artist. Of noteworthy gear, Goku's build feature items such as the Vertex Mask Helmet, the Queen of the Forest Chest Armor, the Atziri's Step Boots, and the Maloney's Mechanism Quiver, which currently is the only quiver in the game that actually has sockets in it, besides the base type of course. Another cool thing about that is that whenever you attack with a bow, like with Toxic Rain for instance, then the socketed gems in the bow will trigger. Goku's setup utilized the Frenzy skill and pair it with the Curse on Hit and Despair for an easy way to generate extra or sustain Frenzy charges and to reliably apply the Curse to anyone it hits. Now please bear in mind that this quiver is very expensive, but it is by no means required for the build. You can just as well use a Drill Neck, Soul Strike or Rare Quiver instead. As a matter of fact, one of the beauties of Goku's build is that it is very budget friendly and doesn't require too much tinkering around to get to a point where it feels strong. You can for a big part of your journey rely on cheap leveling weapons, but for endgame you will eventually want to craft a bow with additional levels to skills. But the process of doing that is actually rather simple if one takes a moment to try and understand it, and Goku has it covered in his guide too. Alternatively, you can of course also just save up and buy the bow already crafted. Toxic Rain is a very interesting bow skill. If you want to try it out, check Goku's guide out or visit him over on Twitch to ask about it. Alright boys and girls, that was the 5 builds I wanted to present to you today, but before we quit, I actually do have one extra build I wish to present to you. It is the bonus build, and it is a Flicker Strike Ascendant or Slayer build by yours truly, LiftingNerdBro. 2 hours before the launch of 3.7 Legion, I still had no idea what build to play and panic was starting to creep in. I told my wife of my worries and she asked me what I thought I was good at, and I immediately realized that my exceptional powers of satisfying women in bed because of my very large penis, but also due to my often praised dexterous abilities when it comes to flicking the bean, was it. So what could be more natural than playing a Flicker Strike build? I told this to my wife and she disagreed. Whammon right. Another reason can possibly be that Flicker Strike was changed in 3.7 to have up to 20% chance on hit to generate a Frenzy Charge, just by itself. This means that Frenzy Charge sustain has become much easier and less reliant on specific items to help sustain the skill, such as we've seen in the past together with the Oro's Sacrifice or Terminus Est Sword. So being the absolute hipster that I am, I decided on trying it out with something entirely different. The Tidebreaker Mace. And not only did I wish to use a rather slow weapon, I also wanted to try to see if I could make Flicker Strike a reliable stun skill, something I only saw possible in doing effectively with a mace. The Tidebreaker is pretty damn amazing when combined with enough endurance charges, and this build utilizes up to 9 of these. This means the implicit endurance charge on melee stun goes on to apply a 36% more damage multiplier on top of the 90% increased damage that is also obtained through the Tidebreaker. I found that once I had probably geared the build that I could stun any boss in the game up to and including the Shaper. However, the Shaper stuns are a little more unreliable, but anything below that could be stunned very reliably and effectively. The build is designed to be a fast mapper with survivability and focus. It can deal with bosses up to and including the Shaper as I mentioned, but bossing isn't really the focus of the build, and if you decide on trying it out, then do it for its map clearing potential rather than as a late game boss killer for that matter. It is played as the Ascendant, starting by first picking up the Champion Sub-Ascendancy for extra damage multipliers, a free Fortify effect, and 20% chance to impale, which allows the build to eventually reach 100% chance. It also picks up the Berserker Ascendancy for a strong damage multiplier, but even more importantly, the ability to generate rage without necessarily having to suffer the downsides of those of the regular Berserker Ascendancy, or having to use the Rage Support Gem. The build is rather budget friendly, and I've made a guide explaining everything you need to know thoroughly in my video, but if you have any questions, you are of course always welcome to leave a comment on the video and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And cut! That's it for this week's build showcase. If you in any way enjoyed the video or found it useful, then please consider leaving a like to help me conquer that YouTube algorithm. And remember to subscribe and ring that bell icon in case you wish to see more of this in the future. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?